What if I told you Melon isn't the real villain of this season? The actual villains are not who you think. They're the ones society refuses to blame. Beastars Season 3 is another season chock full of new lore, new drama, and new characters. And today, we are going to talk about everything, how this world differs from ours, along with how they parallel. Hello, my little furries. Welcome back to another one of my Beastars videos. If you do not know me, I am your luscious video host, Luis. I was honestly so indecisive on what I should do my next video on, but then I saw we got a new season of Beastars, and that made my decision much easier. So without further ado, let's get into the overview. This will be an overview of the main plot points of the season, so if you don't want spoilers, I would click off now. We start the season off with a menacing character with his face out of frame, and featured are these glowing carrots. He has Legoshi's file and sees that he has a case of predation, but he was let off with a slap on the wrist because Louis consented to his leg being eaten and other people spoke on behalf of his character. With all this said, this mystery character does not care about these circumstances at all. He still wants to make Legoshi pay for what he did. We touch base with the main cast for this season, which I would say is Legoshi, Louis, and Haru. There are characters who have side plots, like the Shishigumi Lions and the Charrington Academy Drama Club. Haru is now in university, and she is getting exposed to other interspecies relationships, and the bigotry that still surrounds them, along with anti-carnivore prejudice. Here we have an example of how open-minded college students start to look around them and question societal norms and how the world outside of those campuses push back on them. I would say this theme of how the real world functions is an overarching theme this season. We see Louis is now back at his family estate and now has a robotic prosthetic, must be nice. Now that he is no longer the Shishigumi boss, he is thrown back into the role of the sole heir of Horn's conglomerate. Legoshi is dealing with meat withdrawal symptoms as he is acclimating to his apartment living alone with a part-time job as an udon delivery boy. We come back to Charrington Academy and see it is now segregated. The drama club is figuring out what to do and how to operate under these circumstances. The Shishigumi is now struggling with their status in the black market now that they don't have a boss. At the end of the first episode, a mystery person commissions a super drug from the shady apothecary owners under the Shishigumi. This person then declares himself as the new Shishigumi boss. We later learn this person is Melon. In addition to this super drug being made, there is an energy drink by the name of Kiness that is causing carnivores who have eaten meat to go into a violent rage. A little slice of life aspect of this season that leads up to the main plot is where Legoshi almost eats his neighbor. She doesn't run away after being pinned down because Legoshi started asking her questions about why his electricity got turned off and still saw her as an equal in a way. Her name is Seven. At first I thought that was her room number, since in Japanese the pronoun you is seen as rude in a lot of contexts, so I thought he was just calling her by her room number, but her name is actually Seven, which is so random. Seven works at a shoe store and helps Legoshi find nice sneakers because the sneaker designs for large carnivores are very limited. She gets picked on by her carnivore coworkers. Legoshi witnesses it firsthand. He speaks up for her immediately. Because of his stature, they immediately apologize to Seven. She's extremely annoyed by this because she's been trying to white-knuckle the teasing and the sly remarks and try to earn their respect in some way for years. And some kid just comes to the store and says one thing, and they immediately fall into line because he's a big wolf. Legoshi does want to speak up and fight for the weak, but he learns a lesson that not everyone wants him to fight their fights for them. Also, honorable mention to these rats. The 500 cornered rats, they steal stuff and work together to steal things. Look at them go! They were caught stealing kinnis from these dealers, which is insane because they're literally dealers, but apparently kinnis is being mass produced and publicly sold, so they would just be brand ambassadors, basically. The cops ended up arresting these rats and beating them. The mysterious character we got in the intro is revealed to be a horse named Yahya. He is the Beastar, who is a vigilante that lives in a penthouse on top of the police headquarters, literally above the law. He gets the little rat boss to help him in his Kiness investigation. We meet Gosha, who is actually Legoshi's grandfather. Legoshi's biological grandfather is a Komodo dragon. We learn that Legoshi gets his fighting chops from Gosha, and he and Yahya used to be partners in crime fighting. The reason they had a falling out was because Gosha met a beautiful gray wolf that they both saved. Gosha, after getting her pregnant, wanted a peaceful life so he could raise a family. Yahya did not take this well. They haven't seen each other since. Not to go on a gay tangent, but I feel like their relationship was a little more than friends, because reacting with your friend wanting to walk away from fighting crime after finding out he's going to be a father and meeting him with a punch in the face is a little much. I feel as though they were lovers in some way. If not in love with each other, they were in something with each other, or at least Yahya was. If anything, I feel like Yahya would be asexual, maybe aromantic, and his true love is the cause. And he shared such a strong bond with Gosha because they shared the same cause. We see Louis go on a date with his arranged fiance. She wants to take the car for a test drive before she buys it, if you catch my drift. Louis gets so in his head about being with not just another herbivore, but with another deer, and he just pukes. We get some more lore and learn more about the sea. The fish are just regular fish, a missed opportunity if you ask me. They have an ocean language that sounds like this. The fish are intelligent to some extent, intelligent enough to order udon and speak an intelligible language that probably can be used to convey complex ideas. But they're very simple and instinct-driven. They'll try to eat anything that is in front of them. They even have their own currency, which is shells. Legoshi does not speak the ocean language, but luckily this seal is bilingual, and he's able to help Legoshi out of this pinch. The seal's name is Sagwan, and apparently he lives in Legoshi's building, because why not? Here we learn from Sagwan that the ocean lives in quote-unquote harmony. Basically, the ocean in this world works like all of nature in our world. Eat or be eaten. You would think this would be chaos, but Sagwan is extremely zen about it. He seems to be at peace with his own mortality. Every being lives another day to eat another meal, and sometimes they're the meal. In episode 5, we see the Shishigumi picking up a new and very powerful super drug from the suspiciously affable and just downright adorable civet Deshiko. After making the lions walk through a maze for 3 hours, he has them drink some coffee, but the coffee is made from the very super drug they were sent to collect. So for those who are unfamiliar, I certainly wasn't before this. Kopi Luwak is a coffee made from partially digested coffee cherries that have been eaten and excreted by the Asian palm civet. The coffee beans are fermented as they pass through the civet's digestive system. From what Wikipedia has to say about it is it doesn't even taste good. It is the most expensive coffee out there, but the quality is not there. It's just a gimmick. Civets' glandular secretions from their anus are also used for musk in perfumes. So apparently this makes Deshiko's poop smell really good. I don't know if actual civets have poop that smell nice, so maybe go find a civet and let me know. But this drug that Deshiko has made has a similar effect to Kinnis, but it is way stronger. It is made from ivory, meat, and blood gathered by his bats, paired with his kopiluwak beans. He blends and refines the ingredients to make this little black ball you see here. The name that Deshiko gives the drug is melda. The subs translate it with an L, but of course in Japanese it would be merda, which in Italian and Portuguese, merda just means shit. Very cheeky of Deshiko. You know, why hide that you're feeding rich underground elites your shit? He probably gets a kick out of it knowing him. We love a scat queen. The lions learned that Melon sent them not to just retrieve the product, but also help with the production of it. So Deshiko sends them back to the maze to pick up all of his droppings. We see that Legoshi gets a personal invitation to Yahya's penthouse. This is Legoshi's first time meeting Yahya. Yahya does know Legoshi is Gosha's grandson at this point, but Legoshi doesn't know Yahya's past with his grandfather. Yahya treats Legoshi to a dinner of his weird glowing carrots. This whole dinner invitation was for Yahya to get a sense of where Legoshi's morals lie. Since Yahya still wants to bring Legoshi to justice for eating Louis' leg, Yahya is not pleased with Legoshi's nuanced view of justice and what a Beastar should be, while Yahya's view of the world is extremely black and white. After Yahya asks Legoshi what he thinks the Beastar truly is, Legoshi gives his belief of pretty much what he has been told what the Beastar is, which is a beacon of hope, a role model for society to follow their example. But Yahya believes that the Beastar should be the one to exact law and order. Yahya then reveals that when someone is made a Beastar, they are granted one wish, whatever it may be. I'm assuming a wish granted by the government, not a magical wish. For his wish, he wanted to turn the carnivores he brought to justice into fertilizer. This is the reason why Yahya's carrots are so special. The nutrients from them keep him strong enough to take on carnivores even in his early 50s. And this is the reason he brought Legoshi here. He wanted to test if Legoshi was worth sparing or turning into fertilizer. I think Yahya's morals are being challenged here. As he's intimidating Legoshi, he is thinking about Gosha and the decision he made to leave him to start a family. If Legoshi wasn't Gosha's grandson, I don't think he would have given it a second thought to kill him, but since he is, he's considering giving Legoshi a chance at proving himself. Yahya then gives Legoshi an ultimatum. Either he begs Yahya for forgiveness and apologizes for being a carnivore, or he, quote, prevents some of his friends from becoming fertilizer for Yahya's garden. I really don't know what he means by this. Is he threatening Legoshi's friends? Or is Yahya saying, if Legoshi does this, he'll stop using carnivores as fertilizer? This is so vague. I wonder which friends he's talking about, and I wonder for what reason. I'm going to say this is a hollow threat because logically, it doesn't make sense. Legoshi doesn't even take a moment to process the second part. He just thinks about how he has to apologize for being born a carnivore, which he does. I don't like that he did that. What he also does to show Yahya how serious he is about not eating meat again, he rips out his fangs. I understand wanting to prove a point, but Legoshi is just so impulsive, and the tone portrays him as noble here, but I just hate this whole scene because apologizing for being born as you are is so fucked up. Then on top of that, in a way, maiming yourself, ripping out a characteristic of your identity just sends a message of assimilation. Legoshi punches Yahya to prove a point, then Legoshi tells him carnivores are capable of reason and apologizes and leaves, which piques Yahya's interest. After this whole fiasco, Legoshi's face swells up. It's so cute. Shout out to Legoshi's swollen face. Yahya gets some more information on Melon. We learn that he's a therapist. He sees patients that are elephants, then kills them for their ivory. Yahya goes to detain Melon, but Melon was 2 steps ahead of him. The black market thinks Yahya is dead, so they are open and selling meat in the streets in broad daylight without a care in the world, because I guess the police are not going to do anything about it. Yahya is not dead, he is just injured and keeping a low profile to plan his next move on Melon. The poop drug is ready, and Melon wants to debut it at this underground masquerade ball. Can't believe that's a sentence I'm getting paid to say. Yahya goes to Legoshi to ask him to help take Melon down. To persuade him, he offers to clear up his record of previous predation, so marrying Haru can be a possibility for him. He has Legoshi escort 2 exotic dancers to the masquerade. We see Cosmo again and get introduced to Luna. I love these 2 characters, by the way. I wish we had more time with them to see what their lives and relationships are like. At the masquerade, we see all different kinds of beasts, herbivores and carnivores alike, just mingling as equals. Some gay things are even happening because it's underground and anonymous, so they feel free to indulge in anything society might deem as taboo. I also love the masks, but how is anyone supposed to eat, drink, or even kiss in these things? Look at this guy. Instead of kissing this woman, he's just hugging her really intensely. As Legoshi is in the party and gets his bearings on his surroundings, Yahya gives Legoshi some options on which one Melon could be. He uses the restroom and smells that even though it is a gazelle that used the urinal, his urine smelled of meat. Legoshi then pursues Melon, following him up the catwalk, all while admiring Melon's gracefulness. He is now face to face with Melon, and we get the most intense, grotesque, and sexy face reveal I've ever seen, period. As this is happening, Legoshi is just thinking of the children he could potentially have with Haru. He compares Melon's face reveal to his own offspring hatching from an egg. And that's exactly what this is framed as, some grotesque monstrosity coming into the world. Instead of immediately taking Melon down, Legoshi talks to him. He is extremely curious to see how Melon is as a person. Since Legoshi is technically a mixed beast like him, Melon could tell he was, since apparently Legoshi is much too tall to be a pure gray wolf. After all this getting to know him, Melon shoots Legoshi. He puts him into a coma for almost a week, where he has a near-death experience where he speaks to his mother. During Legoshi's time in the coma, while we're not even sure he's alive, Louis is conducting a solo investigation on Keenis. He also gets a sharp phantom pain in his missing leg when Legoshi gets shot. How gay is that? Louis is accidentally going through the black market because his navigation doesn't know there's anything wrong with the area, but the agreement he made with the Shishigumi was that he could walk away from the gang, but if they ever saw him again on their turf, they would kill him on sight. So Free sees his antlers and goes to catch up with him. Once caught, about to get shot by Free, Louis sheds his antlers, and Free uses that as an excuse to not shoot him because he doesn't recognize him. This is really sweet. They all hug him and take them to their lair. I don't know what you call a gang house, but they missed him so much, especially under the mistreatment they've been getting from Melon. Louis learns from a scientist helping him in his investigation that there are trace components of meat in Keenis, but not enough to cause meat intoxication. So the scientist gives him a contact who could help him find out what would cause the reaction in carnivores. That contact was none other than Deshiko. Out of risk of being recognized as the heir of Horn's conglomerate, he goes undercover and pretends to be a scientist from Horn's Pharmaceuticals. He just goes without his antlers, and he hopes that is enough to not get him recognized. It doesn't work, surprise, surprise. Louis learns how Keenis actually works, and he wants to take it to the press. But Deshiko says, why mess with a good thing? The point of that seems to be to bring to light all of the illegal meat consumption that so many carnivores are doing, to maybe incite some change, while creating a lot of casualties in the process. Louis then goes to the police headquarters where he wants to speak to the Beastar, Yahya. The receptionist dismisses the fact that Yahya has a penthouse in the police station as just a rumor. So since Louis doesn't have elevator access, he takes the stairs up the whole way. He tries going up to the penthouse, but the guards stop him. One of the guards had just drank Guinness and went into a rage. Yahya comes and saves him by dumb luck. They detain that guard and go to the ground floor. They end up making a scene while this idol was doing press at the headquarters, and Louis takes the opportunity to tell the press that Guinness is a drug. Louis gets a stern talking to from his father. We also learn that Guinness is made and distributed by the company of his fiance's family, who are all herbivores. Something sinister and, dare I say, conspiracy level things are going on here. Once Legoshi is out of his coma, he goes to find Melon. He follows his scent to a tattoo parlor where he finds the sloth tattoo artist, who is still reacting to Melon being in the room minutes after he has already left. Legoshi came in time to hear all of his responses. The sloth talks about how Melon must feel so alone and how difficult it must be to be so different. He also brings up the droplet of the Reaper, which is a beautiful cliff by the beach where Legoshi assumes Melon goes to unwind. But this ends up being a trap. Melon then straps Legoshi to a chair and throws him off a cliff. We then end the season with the reveal that Melon is a college professor, one of Haru's professors at that. I swear, every season of Beastars is just more and more complicated. The amount of things we as an audience are just learning about this world, and the first half of the last season is actually insane. It has made my job all the more challenging, but of course, I'm more than happy to do it, even if no one asked me to. So without further ado, let's get into the individual character analyses, starting with Yahya. Yahya is the first person we catch a glimpse of at the very beginning of this season, and honestly, the concept of him kind of pisses me off from a writing perspective. He calls himself a Beastar, the Beastar. At this point in the series, you would think they would have explained exactly what a Beastar is, but I had to do some digging to get a clear definition of what a Beastar is. So according to the Beastars fandom wiki, a Beastar is the term that is awarded to the beasts that manage to stand out in society as leaders and unite carnivores and herbivores despite the differences between their respective species. So there's two categories of Beastars. There's the young Beastar, who is chosen as a representative of an institution like an academy. They are just candidates to become a Beastar, and they are compared to other young Beastars around the world. Even though they are not officially Beastars, when they graduate, they will have prestigious career opportunities. When a young Beastar is chosen above all other Beastars, they are recognized as a sublime Beastar. We don't know for how long someone is a sublime Beastar, but in Yahya's wiki, he is listed as a retired sublime Beastar. It is also important to note that it is not necessary to become a Beastar through academic means. Someone could become a Beastar by fighting crime, which is how Yahya became a Beastar. So with all of this information in mind, assuming Yahya is still a retired Sublime Beastar, and not just retiring at the end of the series, he is still an active vigilante. He is still fighting crime, quote-unquote, as a Beastar. It seems the society does excuse vigilantism, but wants to keep it on the hush-hush. We also do not know if there is a term to be a Beastar, if there can be multiple Beastars at one time, nor do we know how long someone can be a Beastar for, or if a Beastar has any specific duties. Yahya lives and operates at the top of the police headquarters, yet this is not public knowledge. Louis goes to the police headquarters and asks to see the Beastar. The receptionist plays dumb and dismisses Louis by saying this is a rumor, even though this is the same receptionist that lets Legoshi up to see Yahya in his penthouse a few episodes ago. This might be to protect his identity, to protect his place of residence, since Yahya has a lot of enemies. Those in the black market refer to him as the Black Devil. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense why he has so much power in a society that seems to do a lot to excuse the eating of herbivores. I'm sure some of you who have watched the series have noticed this and have been thinking about this, but I'm going to say this anyway. Their so-called black market is run completely out in the open. It is in a set location with businesses that sell meat out in the open. They do not keep moving the locations of where they sell meat. It is in the same place every night. Louis even accidentally walks into the area because his GPS took him there. The police could easily raid this whole area and put all of these people in jail, but they don't, most likely because they just don't want to. With that said, I believe the black market is a metaphor for sexual violence in Japan. I would argue it has to be symbolic of something, because I don't think Paru Itagaki is stupid. I believe she knows how ludicrous the idea of such a large and overt disregard for the law on regular public display would be an eyesore of a plot hole. We've previously established that in this world, devouring is a metaphor for SA. Meat eating is also likened to deviancy because there is this underlying sexual nature of eating meat. And for carnivores in this world, it is not essential. They all can live long, healthy lives without eating meat, but it is something they crave. When that is restricted, it builds up and turns into violence, which is something unique to Japan and arguably other East Asian countries. Repression then turning into sexual violence. While I personally don't think sexual violence is only rooted in sexual repression, this could be a point that Paru Itagaki is trying to make about the society that she lives in as a Japanese person. This is obviously not just a problem in Japan, but a problem everywhere. I can't think of a place where sexual violence isn't an issue, but sexual repression, I think, is a more pertinent issue in Japan and is not properly addressed, along with the roots of misogyny and hunger for power that fuel sexual violence. So we have these crimes being done out in the open, and we have the authorities doing nothing about it, even though they know what's going on, but they don't want to get to the root of the issue. They want to dance around it and police other things. Like how in our society, they want to blame sexual violence on the victims and even protecting perpetrators instead of creating systemic changes of how we raise our children, so they know the importance of consent and bodily autonomy. If we all have bodily autonomy, then we can't be controlled. Specifically, women can't be controlled. They also don't want to talk about sex in general, which can lead to shame, risky sexually deviant practices that could hurt others physically and emotionally. So, like in the world of Beastars, everyone knows about it, but they don't really want to talk about it. Again, with the part about repression. To fix the issue, you have to talk about it. It is the glaring failure of society that I'm sure some would like to deny, but in this instance, it is physically right in front of you and can't be ignored. Even if you fall victim to it, you would be silenced. One, because you would not be alive, or if it was a member of your family, nothing would be done about it. The police force seems to be mainly carnivores. I'm assuming most of them eat meat from time to time. Yahya would be the only person that would be on the side of the victims of the black market, but he is just a vigilante. He lives in a penthouse above the police headquarters, yet he seems to allow this negligence, even when we know how much of a black and white philosophy he has on the issue. Again, Yahya's very existence complicates everything. Yahya also apparently has more power than the mayor in some aspects. It doesn't make much sense. I hope they talk about this more in the last part of the season, because why can't he just wipe out the black market if he's so above the law? It might just be because he is just one man and the police are really not on his side in this aspect. I would love to hear what legal boons and limitations a Beastar has. I hate to ask to be spoon-fed the information, but they might just have to do that because this is the biggest plot hole in the series. A bit more on Yahya's character as a whole. He seems to be a quite in-your-face metaphor for the corrupt mindset of the society. Since he's a Beastar, he operates his life and navigates the world according to the society's philosophy on coexistence. Society's mainstream philosophy on never eating meat. His thinking on this is incredibly black and white. He thinks if you eat meat, you're a bad person, and you should be punished for such a thing, no matter the circumstances. His position as a Beastar also obligates him to not excuse such things. He meets Legoshi to punish him for eating Louis' leg, again taking the law into his own hands. Legoshi was let off with a history of meat consumption on his record. Even multiple people vouched for his character, and he was not given further consequences, yet this is not enough for Yahya. It seems after meeting Legoshi, he starts to see the gray in these circumstances, seeing how kind Legoshi is and how much effort he has made to protect those like Haru who cannot protect themselves. The fact that Legoshi is willing to rip out his own fangs to prove to Yahya that he has no intention of harming any beast in that way again was a meaningful gesture to him. But as I mentioned before, he was probably forced to see this nuance because Legoshi is the grandson of Gosha, so he was hesitant to kill Legoshi. I also find it a bit hypocritical that he kills these carnivores and uses their bodies as fertilizer for his carrots. Even he, in a way, acknowledges that even herbivores need meat in some kind of way, but to Yahya, this would be justified because he isn't directly eating them, and he is only killing those who have eaten other beasts. A little eye for an eye action, but an eye for an eye leaves the world blind, so I don't really think this is just. I do believe this hypocrisy speaks to the world they live in at large. How they don't condone the devouring of herbivores, yet they let meat be sold in plain sight and let some vigilante kill carnivores and bury them for his carrot garden, all in the penthouse of a police station. I do think Yahya is going to have a reality check in the last part of the season, or at least I hope. I think he went over the deep end of his personal philosophy for justice as a Beastar when he parted ways with Gosha. I think Gosha kept Yahya grounded. He was his trusted partner, the only one he trusted to have his back, so to say. In the show, they use this metaphor for the field of vision a horse has. Due to their field of vision, they can see up to 350 degrees. But for this person to complete his field of vision, it would also be someone who would be able to know what is going on in the underworld. Someone who would be able to blend in within the black market. So Gosha would know everything going on. In another way, making his field of vision a perfect 360. Gosha was the one who perfected his field of vision, completed him, if you will. The friendship that Gosha had with Yahya, from what we saw, was intense. They were partners in fighting crime and saving people. While being so close to a carnivore and a Komodo dragon, Yahya was able to see the kind of persecution someone like Gosha would go through on a regular basis, and giving him a more nuanced experience on things. Sorry to interrupt this lovely video. I just want to let you all know I am still not getting much money from YouTube, nor do I have a big enough following to justify making a Patreon just yet. So I decided to sell things on Redbubble. Do you love absurdity? Then these products are for you. Here's a button mash shirt. Here's a button with a button mash on it. Have you ever gotten up in the morning and thought, man, I wish I had a shirt with a picture of a beaver that says whore on it? Neither have I, but I made this shirt anyway, as well as this pillow. There's also this very real quote by Julius Caesar that I put on a shirt. So if you would like to support me directly, help make YouTube my job, and get a plethora of products out of it, please use the link in the video description. If none of these products interest you, but you still want to give me your support, my Venmo is also listed in the video description. Now back to our regularly scheduled programming. Now for Gosha himself, I don't have too much to say about him. This part of the season, he hasn't had a huge arc, but I do love him as a character. He loves the hell out of Legoshi. Gosha tries his best to show Legoshi that he can be open with him. Even as a father to Legoshi's mom, she wanted to hide the fact that she had a Komodo dragon as a father. While I'm sure this hurt him deeply, he still supported her and cared most about sharing a meal with her every once in a while. The significance of sharing a meal is that since Komodo dragons have venomous saliva, they are met with a lot of aggression and distrust in food-centered settings. While their venom is not airborne, many people believe in this myth and are hostile to Komodo dragons in restaurants. In the episode that he is properly introduced, we learn that he has taught Legoshi to be a pacifist. Seeing everything in the series leading up to that moment is quite ironic. When threatened by the hooligans that had just threatened them at the restaurant, he quickly falls back on the whole pacifist thing and beats the shit out of these guys. So does he really believe in pacifism? I want to say kinda. It seems that if Gosha actually subscribes to any form of pacifism, it would be relative pacifism. Relative pacifism, put simply, is not fighting aside from extreme cases. I'm just assuming Gosha took a different stance on violence once he became a father. He didn't want to risk not being in his daughter's life, and then later his grandson's life. It also seems like Gosha taught Legoshi to be a pacifist so he wouldn't lead down the path of crime or vigilantism like his grandfather. But joke's on him, he got into it anyway. When you got it, apparently. His relationship with Legoshi as of recent has not been the strongest because Gosha taught Legoshi to be a pacifist, which is why Legoshi hadn't been as open with his grandfather about what he's been doing. Which is fair. If my 17-year-old grandson was getting into death matches with other teens and detaining what would essentially be drug addicts off the street, I would be extremely concerned and trying to talk him out of that. Sweet Juno has more of an arc this season, and I'm honestly a little surprised by it. Pretty much her whole thing this season is being in love with Louis. I guess I'm surprised by that because of what I discussed in my last Beastars video. I thought Louis would be more into Legoshi, though I did say there wasn't enough evidence to support that on Louis' end. But I will admit that was naive of me because this little dancing scene last season was very romantic. So of course Juno is head over heels for Louis. What teenage girl wolf creature wouldn't be? Juno is struggling with her feelings for Louis, especially since herbivore-carnivore relationships are frowned upon. This seems to be a new thing within the past 50 years is what it seems, and we've also been made aware of the possibility of mixed beasts. So the possibility of unlike species having children is possible in this world, whereas in our world it would be impossible. This would mean that Louis and Juno can absolutely build a family with each other with their own biological children, which would be more incentive to get together. There seems to be more talk on whether the thought of herbivores and carnivores getting together would be complicated because the carnivores struggle against their instincts of eating meat. Even Juno confesses to Legoshi that whenever she thinks of Louis, instead of her heart fluttering, her stomach growls. I would say, in a way, this dynamic is very loosely based on interracial relationships, but now I think it's a form of queerness specific to this world. Allow me to explain. So in our world, we put people into categories: male/man, female/woman, black, white, Asian, indigenous, etc. In this world, beasts would have even more categories: female, male, herbivore, carnivore, reptile, mammal, avian, along with their respective species. So with this, queerness presents differently in a society like this. And by queerness in this sense, I exclusively mean sexuality and not gender. In this world, think of herbivore and carnivore as extensions of gender. We have male and female, and we have an intersection of herbivore and carnivore. While species is completely outside of the equation, it would work like race in our world. You're not considered queer just for liking someone of another race. So let's simplify this. If a male deer likes a female deer, this is fine. If a male deer likes another male deer, that would be an example of queerness in this society. A male wolf liking a female rabbit would also be an example of queerness, as well as a female wolf liking a female deer. But a female cow liking a male horse would not be queer. They are different species, yes, but in this society, while interspecies relationships seem to be frowned upon to some extent, it would not be considered a queer relationship because they are of the opposite sex and of the same dietary group. This is the parallel of heteronormativity in this society. While the series doesn't specify what specific type of interspecies relationship when they just generally bring it up, whether they mean the same dietary group or herbivore-carnivore relationships, but when it comes to most of the controversy going on in their society, they are mostly talking about herbivore and carnivore relationships. The controversy being the hunger. The fact that you could get in a relationship and your partner could devour you if they don't keep their lust for meat in check. Another thing I wanted to bring up is attraction to the dietary groups is treated like attraction to gender. We all know the phrase fairer sex when referring to women. In this series, it is brought up several times how beautiful herbivores are, how they're graceful, delicate, and the like. In this world, herbivores would be the fairer dietary group. While this season, we finally get the insight into what would be the attraction to carnivores, it seems to be some traits usually attributed to men in our world. Carnivores are usually strong. There's a sense of dominance that they exude, specific to this world, but their sharp teeth offers a sense of danger, even excitement. While there are aspects of interracial relationship parallels in this show, there is the dietary group aspect of the show that adds an extra layer to intersectionality in this world that can muddy that a bit and make the show stand alone and not able to relate itself to our world, or at least make that relation more ambiguous and applicable to more things. Circling back to Juno, this is a satisfying development for her. In the first season, she held the belief that the dietary groups should be divided. Now she's so in love with an herbivore that she's willing to shout it to the public. On the other side of this coin, we have Haru. She has been dating Legoshi for quite some time at this point, but she is not open to her friends and family about Legoshi. She doesn't open up to her college friends about the fact that Legoshi is a wolf. Legoshi walks her home. Her father yells at her to be careful because she was close to a wolf. She pretended she didn't know Legoshi and ran to her father. Even when one of her college friends was dating a lion, she still didn't feel comfortable talking about dating Legoshi. She even felt a certain type of way when her friend Ako started dating this lion. She thought it felt performative, like they were trying to make a fashion statement, which ended up being true. She warns her about the dark realities of dating a carnivore, and Ako stubbornly tries to prove her wrong. Very shortly after, her boyfriend loses control and almost eats her, inflicting wounds that sent her to the hospital. When Haru sees the aftermath of this, she thinks to herself and says that to love a carnivore is to live a life of pain and hardship. I would say Haru's struggle in this season would be akin to a bisexual person's experience of dating. Haru seems to be attracted to herbivores like herself. She is not only attracted to carnivores, she just happens to have strong feelings for a carnivore, a relationship she chooses to move forward in. While she could easily live the easy life and abide by society's rules and continue dating herbivores. Very much like how in our world, bisexuals have the decision to blend in with the rest of society and never be openly queer to society. To be in a queer relationship would be choosing to put yourself at risk of disappointing your family, being a social pariah, losing friends, and more. One more thing Haru has to worry about is being physically eaten by Legoshi. So that's another lovely thing to put on that plate of awful. But Haru chooses to stand by her man. She loves the guy, even though they have never kissed. I didn't even think about that after all this time, after all the trials and tribulations, and not even a little peck. I personally could never, but they're young. Everything is so novel for them. On Legoshi's birthday, after some point in the date, Haru practically forces Legoshi to take her to the black market. In the past, Haru has been afraid to ask about what Legoshi is usually doing, most likely out of fear of if he was eating meat regularly. To me, that sounds like an awful relationship, but Legoshi being so quiet and timid, I could see him just asking questions to Haru and just listening to her. So she doesn't want to ignore that part of him and accept him for who he is. She even wants their first kiss to be in a shop selling whole rabbits. And fortunately for my sanity, Legoshi did not match her freak. She really wants to see him for who he is and not be in a relationship with him out of novelty as she unpacks her prejudices. Louis' journey throughout the season highlights his integration back into high society, along with his struggles of integration after the formative time he spent as a mob boss in the black market. In my last Beastars video, I talked about Louis' big realization that he loved carnivores. In this season, that is affirmed. We finally meet his arranged fiance. They are at dinner at a hotel restaurant. Miss Fiance says she got a room. She really said, "Our marriage was arranged, but we're not Puritans. I need to take that thing for a spin." The entire time, Louis is thinking about the fact that they're both herbivores. He preoccupies himself with the thought that their two weak bodies coming together is natural. He gets so stressed and possibly turned off that he ends up vomiting. It's like a gay person forcing themselves to be intimate with the opposite sex. So this would affirm my theory that dietary groups are an extension of gender when it comes to attraction and romance. Louis has a realization that he is attracted to carnivores. From what this scene insinuates, he's exclusively attracted to carnivores. This is an issue since he is the heir of Horn's conglomerate. He needs to be in a relationship that doesn't stray from societal norms. While in the beginning of the season, his father Ogma gives him space to figure things out, which is good. Every young leader needs that, some time of rebellion, but of course, it is extremely conditional. Ogma holds the fact that he bought Louis from the black market over his head, and the fact he sees him as an investment. During Louis' investigation of the Quinus drug, he causes a scene and televised that Quinus is a narcotic. Apparently, his fiance's family is the ones making Quinus, which is absolutely batshit. Why would herbivores make a drug like that? We'll get back to that. But Louis' father asks Louis if he likes women. This is because he thinks Louis might be pulling a stunt to get the marriage canceled. He apparently heard about Louis' little nights with his betrothed. Louis says he is interested in women, but he obviously doesn't seem to be interested in female deers, which is an issue. He needs to fit the mold the society has set, especially if he is to become the face of one of the largest companies of the world. Let's talk about Louis' feelings towards Juno. Again, I'm not too mad at this. Like I said, there wasn't much blatant evidence that he liked Legoshi, so this makes sense. I just wish there was more evidence to show their connection outside of this scene. But apparently, Louis is meeting up with Juno every few weeks for coffee, and they are avoiding talking about the kiss they shared when Louis graduated. He is hiding those feelings he has for her, she can tell. She can tell that because he was eyeing her straw that she has been gnawing at the whole time, and he was wishing he was that straw. All very steamy, since Louis is focused on being an heir and already having a fiance. He completely rejects Juno's advances and gaslights her, saying he doesn't have feelings for her. There are bigger fish to fry this season, so we don't get too much of Louis and Juno, but this is cute. We are now on the big bad of the season, Melon. Don't be fooled by his silly name. He is quite dangerous and unstable. He is a mixed beast. He is the product of an interspecies relationship. He is half gazelle and half jaguar. He has the slender build of a gazelle and the ferocity of a jaguar. His hearing and sense of smell are extremely keen. His body and horns make him look like a gazelle, but his face really tells the story of his background. On his cheeks, he has leopard spots along with sharp fangs. We learn later in the season that because he is mixed, he doesn't have a libido. And if that doesn't sound awful, what also adds insult to injury is that he doesn't have the taste buds of either herbivore or carnivore. Melon himself said that whatever he puts in his mouth, no matter how delicious, turns to ash. I honestly can't blame the guy for being a psychopath. That sounds like a truly terrible existence. Since he has no way of experiencing true pleasure, Melon goes to pain. He is deeply afraid of being more marginalized than he already is. Jaguar spots keep appearing on his body, so he gets them covered up with melon leaf tattoos. He goes to a sloth tattoo artist. He's so slow that he causes his customers to bleed to the point of hospitalization. But for Melon, this is perfect. He likes the pain. This is one of the only ways he can get any kind of pleasure. Another way he can get pleasure is from hurting others. He loves to kill. He never eats his victims. It just brings him joy to see them suffer. So now that I'm thinking about this, why would Paru Itagaki make a character like this? We have just been introduced to the concept of mixed beasts. There seems to be a lot of controversy about interspecies relationships. This whole controversy seems akin to interracial and queer relationships, and from what I've seen so far, Paru is for the gays, so why would you have the concept of the offspring of this controversial relationship be a murdering psychopath? Like, Paru, girl, that's not how this works. You gotta show us good representation of the thing, then you can show us that there are bad ones too. We have peanut monkey brains. I really hope there are more mixed beasts next season. If this could potentially happen to any mixed beast, why would the parents of these beasts reproduce? That would be irresponsible. The appearance aspect is fine. There are people with facial differences in vitiligo and body differences who are just as deserving to live fulfilling lives, but the fact that they have no libido and can't even get joy from food, so they turn to self-harm, or worse, harming others, I don't like that. In fact, I hate it, especially if you're trying to convey this message of being yourself, love is love, etc. A little later in the series, we do learn more about Legoshi's mother. While Legoshi is hospitalized, comatose, he gets an out-of-body experience and gets a visit from his late mother. Legoshi's mother is a mixed beast. She is the daughter of a wolf and Komodo dragon, but when she was born, phenotypically presented as a completely normal wolf. She was even very beautiful. So beautiful, she even had a successful modeling career, but at one point, she started getting patches on her body where she grew Komodo dragon scales. for someone who enjoyed the privilege of presenting as a non-mixed beast suddenly thrown into marginalization, this was devastating for her. She even tells Legoshi that mixed beasts are an abomination, and that she was extremely ashamed that she was one. Legoshi, being an innocent child, he had no issue with how his mother looked. He even thought the contrast of his mother's scales and fur was beautiful, and he regrets not sharing that with her on the night she chose to end her own life. This is a touching moment, and it shows that even if you look different, obviously that means you're not worthy of discrimination. If it was just the issue of looking different, then this wouldn't be too big of an issue for the overall message. But the fact that these interspecies relationships can give these beasts defects that affect their quality of life significantly is an issue. While yes, people with disabilities exist, these disabilities are not caused by interracial reproduction. That would essentially make the consequences of interracial reproduction more similar to the outcome of incest, which sucks. I don't think Paru Itagaki thought this one through. This is a pretty deep hole she's dug for herself. Where we left off in Legoshi's story, he had just quit school and he now has a history of meat consumption on his record. We don't really see him have much emotional regrets about eating Louis' leg. We mostly see him grappling with meat withdrawal symptoms. Which is fair, I guess. Legoshi only ate Louis' leg after he insisted. Now he sees some gray area to eating meat since he has now done it himself. Legoshi still has these righteous ideals that carnivores should not eat meat in general unless the herbivore has consented. When confronted by Yahya, he rips out his fangs as a gesture to show Yahya that he is serious when saying he has no intention of further harming herbivores. Like we've established, this season is Legoshi, or the main cast in general, fully coming into adulthood and realizing how the real world operates. We also see the issues that this world has and the issues it doesn't want to address. The biggest issue is that the mainstream society's concept of peace is the very thing keeping it from reaching actual peace. What I mean by this is, in the world of Beastars, they have prided themselves on the fact that they have reached quote-unquote peace and harmony among all beasts. They outlawed all consumption of meat, and any consumption of meat is a moral failure. But from what we can see, there are many beasts that eat and sell meat. Devourings have also been on the rise. It is all from this. No one can freely eat meat even once in a while. From what Legoshi is being exposed to, the answer to peace in the society is really eating meat in moderation. The person who has the answers to start the conversation of fixing the society is Sagwan. Sagwan is the personification of peace and the ocean, it seems. What he shares with Legoshi is incredibly surprising. He tells Legoshi that in the sea, it's a free-for-all. Sagwan doesn't have any qualms about eating other animals because that's just how life works. He also thinks that way about his own mortality and the mortality of others. If it's your time, it was just meant to be your time. Simple as that. If you eat another animal, it's to give yourself sustenance, and it's nothing to be ashamed about. I'm assuming this was how life used to be on land as well. Something happened to change that. We don't know what yet, but I have a good feeling that explanation is coming. In the first episode from the finger-biting guy, that meat eating used to be embraced, and festivals for it did not happen underground. He also said this happened within his lifetime. Maybe this was how it was while he was a child, so I'm assuming this was happening up to 60 years prior, which means the society has changed a lot within a century. While Legoshi goes undercover to arrest Melon, he escorts 2 exotic dancers into the underground party. On the way, the dancers warn him about a red juice. They say if he drinks it, he'll go into a meat-intoxicated rage, much like when a carnivore drinks Guinness. The reason why it won't cause an issue for the other carnivores attending is that they have their cravings in check because they eat meat every once in a while. Cosmo even says it's the only time where herbivores and carnivores can come together as equals. There were even some overtly gay things going on as well, so this really is a place where there is no judgment and people can really be themselves. The metaphor being society should embrace sex and kinks as a normal part of life to minimize shame and a buildup of repressed feelings that end up exploding and harming people. I think something like this would be the solution to the society's issues. Having carnivores eat meat every once in a while, sourcing the meat as ethically as possible, maybe getting it from beasts that have already died. Maybe they can work out those logistics somehow. But from what the story is showing us, that seems to be the most logical option for achieving harmony. But let's talk about Guinness. It comes out of nowhere, and near the end of the season, it is revealed to be mass-produced by a company owned by herbivores. This is incredibly convoluted and revealed so casually. Like Deshiko said, he sees this as a good thing. It will take the flaws of society out of the shadows and into the daylight. From how Deshiko reacts, it seems like he is not surprised at all. He could even be the very beast that made Guinness in the first place, and the company could have even known about it. From what the series is leading to, it seems like there are some really big things going on in the background, and I think this next season, we are going to see it boil over. While Deshiko's method of exposing how society is actually not in peace and harmony, and this restriction is the very thing harming society is just, the only thing is, it is extremely reckless and leads to casualties of innocent beasts. That is one of my theories. Another would be that this company just wants to incite violence caused by carnivores and further society into segregation of the dietary groups. Both could be plausible. I am hoping the latter doesn't end up being the case, but it could. I wouldn't put racism past rich elites. More on Legoshi as a character and how he grows this season. Unfortunately, he gets hit pretty hard with the reality of how the world actually is. He is still fighting with himself on how things should be, how his relationship is supposed to be with Haru. He still won't even kiss her. He also thought he could get through to Melon. That ended up horribly. While I do think Melon feels alone, and he probably needs a friend, but I don't think he's ready to change. He got way too much joy out of trapping Legoshi and giving him false hope that he could change him. I don't think Legoshi is going to end up being cruel and apathetic. I think he's going to still be his sweet self, but he's going to learn to be less naive. And maybe he will get through to Melon. Who knows? With everything we have discussed, it would appear that the real villain of Beastars is society itself. I know that's so corny, but this is a complicated, nuanced critique on society as a whole. We can't have some one-dimensional queer-coded Disney villain as the big bad, even though that does seem like what Melon would be. It's just not the case here. Beastars is really just a drama. Things are just happening. While yes, there needs to be some kind of conflict to give the season shape, there isn't really a set villain of the series. There are too many moving parts. You have Yahya as this twisted hero, Melon as this more in-your-face villain, and Deshiko as this impish mastermind whose influence is probably felt farther than you would expect. They are all facets of this flawed society, and any bad they end up doing is because of these major flaws in society. The outlawed act of meat consumption and the distaste of interspecies relationships. Which, given the association of these things, it would be akin to the aversion of kink, sexual repression, and queer phobia. I would say those are the true villains of Beastars, and I can't wait to see how this all wraps up. Thank you all so much for watching until the end, and thank you so much for almost 3,000 subscribers subscribers, and thank you for all the love and the comments on my Ferris Bueller video. I was not expecting such an overflow of positive comments. It really keeps me going. I can really see myself doing YouTube full-time in the near future. If you want to help out with that, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And of course, buy some of my merch on Redbubble or a tip on my Venmo if your budget allows that. With that said, I have been your luscious host, Luis, and I hope you take care. I'll see you in the next one.